fall. Whoa, oh, oh, whoa, A shaman friend asked me quite keen, why don't you record your dreams, pondering what they might mean. Nothing is quite as it seems. Medicine from poison, toxins in our food. People are avoiding others in the neighborhood. But rather than complaining and making weak attacks, rest assured with just one fact: nature is taking us back. Nature is taking her children 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 back. Whoa, oh, 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 whoa, oh, whoa, oh. Medicine from poison and toxins in our food. People are avoiding others in the neighborhood, but rather than complaining and making weak attacks, rest assured with just one fact: nature is taking us back. Nature is taking her children 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 back. Whoa, oh, 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 whoa, oh, oh. Thank you. I'm gonna unplug the guitar now real quick. All right. I'm gonna play something on the banjo. I just got a banjo a couple months back, so I'm still new at it. And yeah, I guess now's the moment I can, what do I want to say? I don't have a lot to say. I mean, you said a lot up there, so I mean, I've got some music online. If you want to take a listen, it would be great, because I know people don't buy CDs as much as they used to, or records and things, and just listening to someone's music online gives them sort of like a status of worth in our internet eyes, which is a weird thing, but all of these views and listeners and things are like the metric of our worth as musicians and creators, which is kind of paralyzing and terrible, but that's how it is. So if you want to support me, it's very easy. Just take a listen online, and your contribution would be very appreciated. So this is a song, oh, let's make sure I got this right. All right. This is a song, a kind of imagined fairy tale about a witch that lives in the forest in a little mushroom. I met a fairy in the forest deep who lived in a porcini buried in the leaves. I said, come and skinny dip with me in Turkey Creek, where the little minnows nibble on our bare butt cheeks. Clover, hey Clover, won't you come over? Clover, hey Clover, please come over. She showed me her porcini house and welcomed me. Each day and night was perfect in her company. Adventure filled the moment so magically. I stayed there for so long I lost my memory. Clover, hey Clover, won't you come over? Clover, hey Clover, please come over. I sensed this fairy witch had cast a spell on me. The fence of fungus blocked me every way I flee. She turned into an owl flying after me and froze me in a bolo tie eternally. Clover, hey Clover, won't you come over? Clover, hey Clover, please come over. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was incredible. And again, listen to the music on Spotify, SoundCloud, Bandcamp, and the tip jar and the CDs are available here for purchase. We've got a couple of things to celebrate this week. Noah Bradford has a birthday. Cheryl Brissett has a birthday. And I believe that Noah just got a new job over at Lowe's. So congratulations to him on that as well. Big round of applause. And if you have a life event that you would like to share, if you have a life event that you'd like to share with us, an anniversary, a birthday, anything along those lines, by all means, let us know. Or if something isn't going so well, maybe you got a surgery or something coming up, we've got a group that will also help with those things. So whatever's going on that's big in your life, feel free to let us know because people around here will care. Speaking about things that we do around here, we'll go through a couple of events, things that are coming up. One of them is book club that will be happening today. As soon as we're done with our program here today, folks who have read this book, the one that's up on the picture, will come and discuss it. And if you would like to come and discuss books that you've read too, then you can join the book club. For those that would prefer to have a beer, you can join happy hour. That's where I'll be Wednesday night. So we'll be over in Blue Springs. That's on Main Street there. That's called the East 40 Brewing Company. Starts at 6, it ends whenever. So by all means, if you're so inclined, come out and enjoy some good community and discussion out there. In addition, not tomorrow, but the following Monday, the 25th, there's going to be a musical monthly musical Mondays is things that's starting, and we will be going through Little Shop of Horrors. They'll be presenting it here, so bring some food to eat, bring some some comfy chairs to sit if you want on, whatever you want to do, but enjoy the music. I don't know if it's the real original one or the one from the 80s, but either way, it's Little Shop of Horrors, so I'm sure that you'll enjoy it. And then we also have the fifth Sunday coming up. The next one is in December. So whenever we have a fifth Sunday of the month, it's always a service Sunday. And so this service Sunday coming up in December will be a community blood drive. There is a sign up that you can find down there. If you can't, you can just click on the little QR code, do the picture thing, and it will take you to it. And so you can please sign up for that and donate your blood to a worthy cause. People who need it generally save lives with that stuff. So next, what we're going to do is we're going to turn it over to our community moment. Our community moment is going to be presented by John Mueter. His 3 words here are quiet, curious, and passionate, and he will be telling us about some Switzerland for a bit.
Hello, everybody. This will be the Blitzkrieg tour of Switzerland in 15 minutes. At the beginning of October, I decided that I would go to Europe one last time. It's becoming more difficult for me to travel. Airports are just, seems every airport is chaos. And I'm having mobility problems, so I thought I'll just do a week somewhere. Where would I like to go that I really enjoy? I've been to Switzerland many, many times, but actually just know the Romande, the French-speaking part of it. I had a friend who lived in Lausanne, and I visited him. We made many excursions, and there was a lot of the German-speaking part that I did not know. Switzerland is a fascinating country, besides being incredibly beautiful, just spectacular. It has 4 official languages. They manage to, and 3 major cultures. The German speakers about 2/3, French speakers about 1/3, and then there's one canton that is Italian speaking. And they manage to keep everybody happy and work together, and it's just amazing how they have done that. One of the few countries in the world that is multicultural, multilinguistic, and functions as well as it does. So anyway, I went to Switzerland, and I decided I would stay in one place, a little town outside of Luzern, which is right in the center of Switzerland, that's south of Zurich, with great train networks, and of course the transportation there is just unbelievable. I mean, the trains, buses, everywhere. So I made a list of places that I wanted to see that I had not been, and places I wanted to revisit. The first place I went to was St. Gallen, which is a small town, a small city, I should say, in the northeast corner of the country near the German and Austrian borders. And I thought I could have saved a lot of money by going to Colorado if I wanted to be in the mountains. So why go to Switzerland? Well, there is the language, which I know, and the food, the culture, and the architecture. And here is just a street in St. Gallen. The whole inner city is preserved, from 16th, 17th century. And this building there is probably from the 16th century. Just the kind of thing you find walking down the street. St. Gallen is famous. For its Baroque cathedral. Very, very beautiful. I think it's the biggest cathedral in Switzerland. It was part of a huge complex that had a monastery and convent attached to it. Of course, it's Roman Catholic. That is the inside, which was very impressive. Very, very beautiful place. But is even more famous for its Renaissance library, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, with fantastic painted ceilings, and of course it's all hand-carved railings, and it is an extraordinary place. They keep it very dark. There were a lot of people there. It doesn't look like it, but it was really packed. And you had to wear felt slippers because they have parquet floors and they don't want them to be ruined. So people just walked around in awe. I mean, such Such a beautiful place. And they have a vast collection of very important manuscripts and objects. I checked the weather very carefully every morning. Switzerland is a small country but can have different weathers because of the high mountains. And it can be sunny and warm in one corner and pouring rain in another. So I adjusted my itinerary accordingly. On my first excursion, I went north to a little town called Stein am Rhein. The Rhine River begins in Switzerland, actually. And it's a preserved, not exactly medieval, but maybe Renaissance town, kind of in the middle of nowhere. It's I had to take 4 trains to get there. I bought a rail pass, which was rather pricey, but worth every penny. I never had to buy a ticket. I just showed my rail pass, and it was valid on cog railways and steamboats on the lakes and most museums. So it was really very convenient. So I hopped on a train, and this is just the first view of the town from a bridge. And walking down the old streets, it looks like time has stood still, like you're in another century. It was not a great day, but it wasn't pouring rain, thank goodness. The main square of the town has these gorgeous painted buildings. And I can't imagine when they have to repaint them, you have to hire, some specialists to come and do that. It must cost a fortune, but all the buildings are painted like that. It's just absolutely exquisitely beautiful. Yeah, a little hard to see in the small picture. On my second day, I went south, and I went to the Italian canton of the Ticino. The Ticino actually is geographically not a part of Switzerland. There are high mountains around it. But after the Napoleonic Wars, they had the choice, this canton, this region, had the choice of joining the House of Piedmont, which is North Italy, or joining Switzerland, and they opted to join Switzerland. So that's how they ended up there, and they're very proud of being Swiss. So this is stepping out of the train station. And it only took me 2 hours from Lucerne, which is just remarkable, because this is really a Mediterranean world. This is in if you've ever been to Italy, there's Milan, north of Milan, there are a whole bunch of lakes, and then you have the mountains. Lago Maggiore, Lago di Como, Garda, and Lugano. And this is Lugano. This is stepping out of the train station. I just kind of took my breath away, palm trees, and it wasn't actually warmer, but it was sunny and so welcoming and so beautiful. I'd been there many times before, but I wanted to see it one more time. Immediately took a boat ride, and I went to a small town called Morcote. The southern part of this lake is actually in Italy, so the 2 countries shared this lake. Just a view, and I wrote on my Facebook page, I wouldn't mind waking up to that every morning. Just such a lovely spot. A lot of wealthy people retire there. I hate to think of what real estate costs, with the view of the lake and the mountains. And this is in the town of Morcote, very Italian, weathered stones and the poplar trees, and just beautiful. Yes, the next day I went, the weather was better, so I went up a mountain, and I was on Lake Luzern, and there were several high mountains around it, and one of them is Rigi, Mount Rigi, which is very special to the hearts of the Swiss people, because it's right in the middle of the country, and they say on a clear day you can see every canton in the country. But it was not that clear a day, but it was all right. So this is a view of what I saw at the top. Going up with a cog railway, and of course there's a restaurant and hotel on top. a rather unusual selfie, taking in the window of the restaurant with the mountains behind it. They say sunrises are spectacular up there, so you can stay in the hotel and get up early and watch a sunrise. So Alp horns, which they love to play in the mountains. They were convenient that there were some Alp horn players up there to serenade us. People wonder, how do you travel with such an instrument? Well, it's in parts. It can be unscrewed. It'd be really unwieldy to put in your car, board a plane with wouldn't fit in the overhead bin, I don't think. This is just a view from the train station of the town where I was staying in Merlischachen, with a view of the mountains, just so beautiful everywhere you go. Another day I went to Interlaken and then took a train to Lauterbrunnen. I had been here a few years before and thought it was the most staggeringly beautiful place I ever saw. This is taken from the Cog Railway on the way up, and you see a waterfall. There are 17 waterfalls like that, just cascading from the high cliffs. And it's the most beautiful valley. I thought, when you drive around Switzerland, you think that can't be real. I mean, it's so incredibly perfect and beautiful. You think it's a postcard that might fall over, but it's real. People live there. So from Lauterbrunnen, I took the Cog Railway up to a town called Wengen. This is on my previous trip to Lauterbrunnen, picture I took, and walked down a great deal of the valley. It was on a perfect summer day. It was just so beautiful. And this is the town of Wengen, which is on a plateau overlooking the Lauterbrunnen Valley with high mountains around. Really popular in the winter for skiing, of course. Though they're having problems. They're not having as much snow. The glaciers are receding dramatically, and the glaciers are the water source for the population. So they're wondering what they're going to do with that. And ski resorts some of them are just closing down because the season isn't long enough. This is again from the Cog Railway. This is my favorite photo. Unfortunately, there's some reflection from the window, but again, looking at the Lauterbrunnen Valley. And this is in Luzern. I had visited it 2 years before just for one day and loved it so much I wanted to go back there. This is the famous bridge. It's the oldest covered bridge in Europe from the 13th century. There was a fire some while back and they rebuilt it. And it's actually, the Lake of Luzern is rather large, and this is a point where the two shores are fairly close together. So this bridge, you can go from one side of town to the other. Okay, well, that was it. Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Okay, I promise no Ricola jokes. No, that was fantastic. Thank you for the presentation. Switzerland looks absolutely amazing. That is a beautiful, beautiful country. As the slide says, we're going to go on a coffee break. So if you know everybody here, fantastic. Probably don't. So go meet somebody that you haven't met before. Say hi to somebody you haven't seen in a while and enjoy some time together. We got coffee and donuts out there, and enjoy some company. Thank you very much. And we'll see you in about 20 minutes. I'm going to do my best to read it, and Fane, if you're here and I get any details wrong, please see Fane. All right, tomorrow at the Screenland Armor, it's a theater up in North Kansas City. The doors will open at 6, the screening will be at 6:30. Tickets are $10, but Fane shot a video, so one of our Oasins shot a movie, and it's going to be premiering tomorrow, and part of it was filmed here in this very building. So it's called Clown at a Funeral, so if you can, absolutely go by and see that, and support Fane and the work that he's doing over there. So. All right, now we'll get Dandy back up, and we will do another song. And again, I also found him on YouTube Music a few minutes ago, so I know he's on there too.
I'm gonna plug in my guitar again, so let's be ready. All right, thank you. So I have 2 more songs. I'm gonna play. This is the first one, then I'll play another one after the talk. This song maybe will make it will. It's a little contemplative song about what's going on in Palestine. So I wanted to bring awareness to that in a public forum, and also about the complexities of how that conflict is presented. So this song's about that. Don't worry, I have a much more empowering, uplifting song at the end. So, you know, just like hold on. Palestine weighing on my mind, all the complexity makes it hard to see what is reality when not in front of me. A propaganda dream when it's all on screen. So many different people who lost everything they cherished, and they claim to be the good side. Is it protection or genocide? Protection or genocide? Protection or genocide? Protection or genocide? All the hospitals reduced to rubble, and the human shields are not consensual. If only killers could just murder murderers. Unrealistic dream in this coward scheme. So many different people who've lost everything they cherished, and they claim to be the good side. Is it protection or genocide? Protection or genocide? Protection or genocide? Protection or genocide? Thank you. I'm going to unplug now.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you very much. All right, we're going to do our disclaimer here. Our program is designed to generate conversation and engage our powers of reason. It's not as a forum to start debates. The following presentation has been prepared by our speakers and not by Kansas City Oasis, so please respect the views of our speakers, and if you have any questions, as normal, a Q&A portion will follow. Today's program is going to be with Alex and Nathan. They're going to recap effective altruism and how it aligns with Oasis values. And then they're going to do a deep dive into some effective altruism tools that you can use to start making your own life better. Alex Hedtke is the organizer for Kansas City Effective Altruism, a community dedicated to learning from each other about how to do good better. His mission is to improve the world through rationality and compassion and to have some fun while doing it. Nathan Dunkerley is a former cancer researcher working towards a career in countering bioterrorism. He described himself as a professional scientist and everything else enthusiasm. So please give a warm welcome to Alex and Nathan. All right, you guys all set? Oh, no, you guys not yet. Yeah. Okay.
Well, Alex, you're going to speak first, right?
I'll sit there.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. I am Alex. Thank you for having us. We did a talk a handful of years ago, back in 2020, aka the dark times. But a lot of people were not able to catch that, and we have since been asked to come back and give a recap on what EA is, for those of you who missed it. So, myself and Nathan will come up and do a little talk here that we affectionately refer to as effective altruism, where head meets heart. So there'll be a few parts to this. Number one, I'm going to go over some basics of what EA is as a philosophy. Nathan is going to come up and give you some details about it, some tools that you can use to apply it to your life. And through that synthesis, hopefully you'll get to come away with an improved outlook on the world. So, effective altruism, what does that mean? Well, let's break it down into its two pieces. Let's first focus on the word altruism, which means something like acting selflessly for other people's well-being. Most people won't object to the general idea of altruism, but the philosophy of effective altruism takes it a step further and says that everyone, even people across the world, are of equal moral importance as those closest to us. This is also sometimes called cosmopolitanism. Furthermore, EA implies that most of us don't give this the urgency it is due. The philosopher Peter Singer uses an analogy where you are walking down the road and you are wearing this really expensive suit. Say it's like $2,500 suit. I don't know how much the expensive suits cost, but that's how much your suit costs. And then off to the side of the road, there is a shallow pond. And there is a child in this pond who is struggling to breathe. This child is actively drowning. For you, this pond would pose no danger whatsoever. So there is no risk to you to jump into that pond and save that child, except for the fact you will ruin your $2,500 suit should you jump in and save that child. Most people would say unequivocally, yes, absolutely, and I would absolutely agree with that. And so would Peter Singer. He uses this analogy to illustrate that we have a moral obligation to use our money and resources to help those in need. Furthermore, he points out that there are children actively dying right now all around the world, and for the cost of that expensive suit, you can save their lives. This is powerful, but I personally prefer a less guilt-oriented framing. The charity evaluator GiveWell estimates that a donation of roughly $2,500 to $300 to an effective charity can save a single life. If a US citizen with the individual median income of roughly $50,000 a year donated 10% of their income every year, that's at least one life saved every year. Now, over the course of an average adult career, that's roughly 50 lives saved. Now imagine if you one day ran into a burning building and you saved the lives of 50 children. the headlines that would be written about you, the heroism you would feel for the rest of your life. That is the opportunity that we have. To me, this is amazing. I am a firm believer in the oasis value of human hands solve human problems, which is altruism, if I ever heard it. So now for the crux of EA, effectiveness, which means something like making an actual measurable difference. So I am also a huge proponent of the oasis value. Meaning comes through making a difference, which is where I think effective altruism shines. In particular, EA tries to answer the question, how do we know that we are making a difference? And how can we make as much of a difference as possible? One premise of effectiveness is that everything we do has an opportunity cost. We simply can't do everything. Every time we do one thing, we are implicitly choosing to not do everything else that we could be doing. We have to prioritize our actions by what gets us closest to our goals. There are many right answers, but some are more right than others. In the same way, not all good is created equal. For example, it costs up to $50,000 to train a seeing eye dog, but only $20 to $100 to prevent someone from getting the condition of trachoma, which causes blindness. So for a single donation of $20, you can either be a drop in a bucket to treat a symptom, or you can prevent someone from going blind in the first place. For the full cost of one seeing eye dog, you could prevent blindness in up to 2,500 people. Now, to be clear, that's not to say seeing eye dogs are not good. They unambiguously are, and I'm glad they exist. However, there are opportunities for doing more good. Now, another example. Imagine you have $100 to spend to help improve school attendance in low-income countries. How many additional years of school can that buy you? So you could provide merit-based scholarships to young girls. That would result in about a month or two of additional school attendance. That would seem like a pretty good deal, right? However, if you spend that $100 on school-based deworming treatments, it would result in about 14 years of additional school. That's almost 100 times more schooling for the same money. Furthermore, that same deworming program can give an extra year of healthy life for roughly $28 to $70, according to the charity evaluator GiveWell. In comparison, new cancer treatments are generally recommended by the government of Australia if their cost per year of healthy life saved is around $45,000 to $75,000, which is a factor of almost 1,000. So at least seeing eye dogs, merit-based scholarships, and new cancer drugs have positive effects. They do still improve and save lives. It's important to remember, though, that this is not guaranteed. This is not always the case. When discussing the effectiveness of charities, it's a common misconception that even if a charity isn't very effective, it should at least do some amount of good, right? Not so. Suppose you were to spend that same $100 trying to prevent juvenile offending using the Scared Straight program. In that case, a study done by the American Academy of Political and Social Science Project estimates that would have a negative effect, costing society up to $29,300 per $100 invested. Play pumps are another cautionary tale within the EA community. A play pump is a water pump that's powered by a playground merry-go-round. So you have your big tower that has a water pump in it, and it's powered by what you might see on a playground. So it was conceived as a means of supplying water for domestic use in developing world nations by taking advantage of the energy produced by children playing on it to then generate water for the village. Sounds like an interesting idea. System maintenance was supposed to be covered by the revenue generated from advertisers. So in 2006, with backing from the Case Foundation, Play Pumps International, based in the US, was set up. By 2009, they had installed 1,800 play pumps across South Africa. The extra force needed to pump this water made the merry-go-round less attractive to children, who quickly got tired. So as a result, the pumps were operated primarily by women and the elderly, who found the task exhausting and undignified. The communities do not appear to have been consulted in any way. In Mozambique, for example, there were, quote, no signs that the communities had been consulted prior to installation or had any say in choosing the pump type of their choice. And the same situation was found in many other places. The cost of a play pump is $14,000, 4 times the cost of a standard hand pump. But hand pumps are significantly more effective than play pumps, pumping 3 to 5 times as fast. So here is a little illustration of what a play pump looks like. See, they're on the little merry-go-round there. The tank is elevated 23 feet off the ground with the only purpose of making the advertising billboards visible from afar. That being so, unnecessary work is needed to raise the water to the tank from where it goes down again until it reaches the tap. Furthermore, billboards turned out to be an unviable source of revenue because companies were not interested in paying for advertising in remote rural areas. So, we will never be 100% confident in the effects of anything that we do, especially at the scale of global problems. This is another reason why measurability and science are so important. It's the only way to iterate and update on our perspective, closer and closer towards the truth. Methods like randomized control trials and regression analysis allow us to cut through the noise and figure out how to best proceed given our uncertainty. As we like to say, love with your heart, but use your head for everything else. Or in the words of Oasis, reality is known through reason. On the subject of updating, this is why the EA community likes to employ 3 metrics when deciding what problems to focus on: impact, tractability, and neglectedness. So impact represents how much the problem affects humanity, the depth and the scope of the problem. The higher the impact of a problem, the higher priority it should be. Tractability is just a fancy word that represents how easy it is to start making headway on the problem. The easier it is to start making headway and making progress on solving a problem, the higher priority it should be. And finally, you have neglectedness, which represents how few people and organizations are already working on solving that problem. The fewer people working on a problem, the higher priority it should be. So these 3 metrics, when you multiply them together, can point us at what issues are the highest priority. Once we determine that, we can then look at the various organizations and charities that are working to fix that problem, applying the methods of science and analysis to audit their effectiveness. Now, the cool thing about these 3 metrics is that they change in response to our efforts. As the problem is worked on and solved, it becomes less impactful. As the low-hanging fruit is addressed, it becomes less tractable. As more people join in on solving the problem, it becomes less neglected. Now, to be clear, not everything important is measurable in practice or maybe even in principle. Fixing systemic economic issues, for instance, might very well be the most important thing we could work on. But if you can't measure it, how can you possibly know whether you are actually making a positive difference or if you just play pumps 2.0? And if you can measure it, then you're just right back in the domain of science and evidence and inquiry. Effective altruism. This is why one cause area we tend to support is gathering data on potential new cause areas. So, effective altruism means something like using evidence and analysis to do the most good that we can do. If you care about doing good and you're willing to use evidence and science to guide you, you are engaged in effective altruism. Everything else is commentary. But now for some commentary. So it's important to also outline what EA is not. EA is not a comprehensive life philosophy. It is a tool, one of many potential perspectives. You can engage in EA and help out at your local soup kitchen, and go see a movie. You just do them at different times. It's important for some of us to feel connected to the good that we're doing, and it can be difficult to get that on with EA sometimes. It's also important not to burn yourself out trying to be a goodness maximizer. Making the world a better place is important, but it's not the only thing important for a life well lived. It's also a common misconception that EA is only for rich people. On the contrary, it is most important for people with the least money. The less money and time you have to spend, the more important it is that you spend it effectively. If you have a ton of money, you can afford to be more experimental in the things you try to do. There's also a distinct movement that often gets conflated with effective altruism, called long-termism. If you hang around effective altruism circles, you will hear this word thrown about occasionally. When this term is used, it broadly applies to the idea that we should prioritize the long-term future over the present, because there will be vastly more people in the future. You do not need to subscribe to this to be an effective altruist, but it's a position that has some overlap with EA. I am not a long-termist, because there is so much uncertainty when it comes to the future, and many things that help the present also help the future. However, I do think that our society as a whole could stand to think a little bit more about the long-term future than it currently does. Finally, you are not expected to support any particular cause area or charity within the sphere of EA. EA is just a methodology. However, because of that, you are expected to show your work when advocating for a particular cause area or organization. So, we know what EA cares about and what it claims, but what has it done? Well, combined, over the past decade since its formal inception, EA-related cause organizations and charities and individuals combined have saved roughly 200,000 lives in developing nations, mostly from malaria. We've drastically improved the quality of life of almost 500 million non-human animals. And we've provided roughly 13% of all funding towards US efforts of reducing the risk of nuclear war. Some estimates put it at up to 25%. So, just to zoom in for a second, per year since its inception, EA has done the equivalent of ending all gun violence, including mass shootings and police shootings, curing AIDS and melanoma, and preventing a 9/11 scale terrorist attack, which all account for roughly 40,000 deaths in any given year. And EA saves roughly 50,000 lives each year. So, where does our local group fit into all this? Well, we're not a legal entity of any kind, nor are we officially affiliated with any other organization. We created this group more as a philosophy club and support community for like-minded people on their individual EA journeys. There are groups like ours in almost every major city, learning more about how we can apply these ideas to our lives. Which brings us over to Nathan. Come on up here, Nathan. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. So much power. Hey guys, thanks. It's so good to be here. It's funny because me and Alex have joked before about infiltrating local organizations with effective altruists. We didn't actually expect it to work. And here I am like 3 months later. I've only been here for 3 months and I've already infiltrated the inner sanctum. So thank you guys so much again for having us here. It's honestly such a great opportunity to talk about something that I love so much with a group of people that I really, really appreciate. I'm going to set up a timer just so that I am confident I'm not going too long. Cool. So the first thing I want to talk about is tools, different tools that effective altruists routinely use in order to do the stuff that we love to do. And then we're going to apply that to a case example. We're going to compare giving a marginal amount of money to the developing world for poverty versus the developed world. And then I'm going to make a quick argument about the relative scale of different problems in the world. So these are, unfortunately, all of the cognitive biases that we have discovered so far. There are probably more that are out there, unfortunately. I'm going to be talking about cognitive biases, but I'm going to be focusing on two specifically that are going to be most relevant to the presentation. So the first one is called scope neglect. Essentially, it's a difficulty that we have as humans to grasp really huge and also really, really tiny numbers. To give you an example of that, there was an experiment conducted where they tried to ask people how much they would be willing to pay to solve a problem on 3 different scales. The problem was specifically preventing birds from drowning in oil slicks. So the 3 different scales they asked people about were 2,000 birds dying per year, 20,000 birds dying per year, that's a 10-fold increase, and then 200,000 birds dying per year, yet another 10-fold increase. So how much were people willing to pay for each of these distinct scales of the same problem? Unfortunately, the same amount. People were willing in all cases to only pay about $80 to solve this problem. And this doesn't just apply to human life or to the lives of birds. It also applies to problems that affect human lives. There was another study that asked a similar sort of question. It was how much would people be willing to pay for a problem that costs human lives? It was contaminated drinking water, and there were 2 different scales that people were asked about. The first was 0.005 lives per 1,000 people, and the second was 2.5 lives per 1,000 people. Now that might not sound like a huge difference if you just think about those as 2 tiny numbers, but the difference there is 600 times. So how much were people willing to pay in each of these 2 situations? Only a 5 times increase. So people, regardless of whether it's a problem relating to birds drowning or people dying, people have difficulty responding to drastic increases in scale. Which brings us to the first lesson that we need to learn, which is do not trust your emotional reactions to huge numbers and really tiny numbers. As they like to say, 1 death is a tragedy, and unfortunately 1 million deaths can become a statistic. We have a tendency to neglect the importance of really small numbers and paradoxically also get lost in the magnitude of really large numbers and underappreciate them. The second thing I want to talk about is the availability heuristic, which is a tendency that we have, once again, as humans, to judge probabilities of future events based off of our past experiences. So to give you an example of that, there was an experiment that asked people to judge the frequency, the relative frequency of 2 different causes of death. Sorry to talk about death so much, I'm just now realizing that. So the 2 different causes of death were all diseases, so that would include infectious diseases, cancers, etc. The second one was all accidents. That would include accidental gun deaths, deaths due to accidental falls, etc., etc. So which of those 2 is greater? The respondents said that they should be roughly equal in frequency. It turns out that all diseases actually cause 15 times more deaths than all accidents. So where are people going wrong? Why aren't they able to grasp or give better intuitive judgments of the relative frequencies of these things? Well, think about which of those 2 is more salient. Which of those 2 comes to your mind more easily? Someone slowly wasting away because of a disease in a hospital that you never get to see, or somebody who accidentally gets shot, or somebody who falls 5 stories from a building and dies. We have a tendency to overestimate overestimate the probability of things that occur when we can more easily recall an example of that happening, either from a headline we've seen or from our personal experience. Which brings us to lesson number 2. Don't trust your estimates of both routine and also, paradoxically, once again, rare events. Like, for example, I have a bachelor's degree. Almost all of my friends have bachelor's degrees as well. If you were to ask me what I think the percentage of the US population is that has a bachelor's degree, I would be prone to overestimate it. Additionally, I've never experienced an earthquake before, thankfully. So if you were to ask me what the global frequency of earthquakes is, a Kansas boy, there's no way I'd get anywhere close. Are you kidding me? So that's lesson number 2. And we're going to move on to something that I really, really like, which is expected value. We're about to get pretty crunchy with the math here. So expected value is when you're trying to judge how good or bad an outcome would be, and you also want to take into account the probability that that thing occurs. Mathematically, we express that as expected value equals the probability that you have an outcome times the goodness or badness of that outcome, which is its value. So I'm going to ask you guys to judge 2 different scenarios in order so that you can appreciate the usefulness of expected value in your day-to-day life. So these 2 different scenarios, each of them involves someone doing something where there's a risk of death. And I would like you to try to figure out for yourself which of these has a greater expected value of causing a mortality. The first one is a 60-year-old who's driving from New York City down to LA. That's a 40-hour drive for people who aren't crazy enough to have tried it. And a 20-year-old that's just living a single day in their life. I'm going to give you guys a few seconds to think about that, and then I'd actually like to poll everybody to see which you think is more risky. Okay, so who thinks that the 60-year-old is doing something that's riskier? Okay, I think that's like 25%. Who thinks that the 20-year-old is doing something riskier? I think that's like 50%. Okay, so it's a trick question. They're actually equally risky. But the thing is, you wouldn't have known that unless you had done an expected value calculation. Both of these things have an expected value of approximately 30 minutes of life lost. So that brings us to lesson number 3, which is don't trust your intuitions about the expected value of a decision. If it's really important, you should at least try to calculate it. But calculating can get really tricky. I mean, let's say that I'm trying to calculate the expected value of an action that will probably save the world or something like that. How in the world do I tabulate up the value of saving the world? Like that includes all of the human lives, all of the animal lives, all of the ecosystems. It's just not really feasible. And how do I calculate the probability of saving the world? So what we typically do in practice is we approximate it using some concepts that might sound familiar to you. So I'm getting really excited. Their impact, neglectedness, intractability, which Alex actually already mentioned. Value is approximated by impact and neglectedness. The more impactful a particular action is, the more valuable it'll be. The more neglected it'll be, the less resources that are going towards it, the more your money and time makes a difference when it goes towards that thing. Additionally, probability you can sort of think of as being approximated by tractability. The more tractable something is, the easier it is to make headway, the higher probability you have of succeeding. So that's actually where Alex got that thing from, where he said you can multiply them all together. That's where that comes from. And there's actually a really good reason why we talk about it like that. So there's multiple different ways that you can do this. If you're a more qualitative person, you like language and descriptions, you could sort of apply a description to each of these. You could say really impactful, a tiny bit neglected, and really tractable, and just weigh those out. Or if you're a more quantitative person, then you could assign each of those a number, say on a scale from 1 to 10, and then multiply them all out. And then you have a handy number that you can use to compare to other problem areas or charities or what have you. So now that we have some tools and we have a toolkit, let's go ahead and apply them, use them, shall we? So we're going to judge the relative impact of giving money to the developing world for poverty. That would include the US, Britain, etc., versus the developing world. That would include Mozambique, Uganda, etc., versus the developed world, which would include places like the US, Canada, Britain, etc. So one quick note when we're talking about impact, when we're giving, it's important to know that regardless of what someone's income is or where they live, doubling their income increases their happiness by approximately the same amount. So that means that you can double the happiness of the median Ugandan household, which makes about $620 per year, by just giving them $620 per year. Whereas if you were to try to double the happiness of the average impoverished American, let's say they're around $15,000 per year, which is the poverty line, it would take $15,000 to do so. So when you do the math, that means you could double the happiness of approximately 20 Ugandan households for the same price it would take to double the happiness of one impoverished American household. And just to be clear, I'm not saying that Americans don't deserve any money or any care or attention. I'm just saying that for the same resource in a finite world, it's possible, once again, there are opportunities for doing more good with your marginal dollar. Now let's look at neglectedness in scale. The number of impoverished people in America is about 40 million, and they earn $15,000 per year. Contrast that with in the developing world, where you have 700 million people who are earning less than $780 per year. Additionally, the amount of money spent on each of these groups. In America, you have $1,700 billion every year in federal aid that goes towards helping these people. Versus in the developing world, you only have $200 billion each year from every country on earth that's a developed country. So when you are dispassionate about this problem, you put aside your feelings about your country, and you put aside how emotionally distant the developing world can feel. There is, on impact and neglectedness in scale, orders of magnitude more good that you can do in the developing world versus in America. So we're going to take a detour real quick, but I promise we're going to get back around to the main point. So I imagine if you were to ask people to order from least impactful to most impactful all of the problems in the world, it would probably look something like this. You get this smooth linear increase. Each problem is only a little bit more important than the previous one. And an important thing to note about this is you actually have a pretty good chance of picking at random a cause area or a problem that's more impactful than the average, which is indicated with the dashed line. In fact, you have a 50% chance at random of picking a cause area that's more impactful than the average. However, if you're going to take the analysis seriously that we just went through, where we found that some problems are orders of magnitude more important than others, and we generalize that to all problems throughout the world, we'll end up with a figure that looks more like this, where there's a few problems, a select minority of problems that are orders of magnitude more important than all the rest of the problems in the world. And once again, something that's important to note about this figure is that if you were to try to choose a cause area at random and hope that it was above average, more impactful than the average cause area, you would have a very slim chance of doing that. So in this world, it actually doesn't matter so much trying to do careful research, make sure that you're making a good choice. In this world, which I believe is the world that we live in, your research and your intentionality makes a very big difference. In fact, it makes orders of magnitude difference. So, where can you go to find resources in order to make orders of magnitude more difference? I'd like to introduce you to GiveWell. It's a wonderful organization. What they do is they evaluate the best cause areas and then charities within those cause areas. And they do successive rounds of research going deeper and deeper and deeper into different cause areas. And they'll eliminate the cause areas and charities that seem less promising and only retain and continue doing research on the problem areas that are really promising, that have orders of magnitude more benefit than others. And the best thing about GiveWell is they continue updating their guidance and their recommendations. If new evidence comes out that makes a less promising area suddenly more promising, then they update. And if the converse happens, then they stop recommending that area. So once again, they update and they're flexible. The criteria that they use might look familiar, and it's because, once again, it's an expected value calculation. So the three criteria that they use are cost effectiveness, evidence, and funding capacity. You can sort of think of the value part of an expected value calculation as being captured by evidence and cost effectiveness. The more evidence there is that something will do good, the more valuable it is. And the more cost effective, the more good you can do with the same amount of cash. Additionally, probability you can think of as being roughly captured by funding capacity. The more funding capacity there is for a problem, the higher the likelihood that you do good using the money that you've given. So I think with all of that, 80,000 hours. 80,000 hours is my jam. I love 80,000 hours. I took their advice to decide to pursue a career in biosecurity, which is sort of like preventing the worst pandemics. They do a very similar thing to GiveWell. They evaluate charities. They sort of like do those successively deeper levels of investigation and then only recommend what they believe are the most impactful careers for you to pursue. And once again, the criteria that they use are impact, neglectedness, and tractability. And with that, I'm going to hand the talk back over to Alex, and he's going to close us out before Q&A.
Well, thank you everyone for listening to us EA fanboys teach you about something that means a lot to us. The takeaway that I would give you guys, if you learn nothing else about EA, is that I consider this to be very important. Our future potential as the human race is very unique. We are one of the only species on the planet that can actually look around at the world and say we should do something else instead. It's not difficult for us to imagine a bad future. I'm sure plenty of you guys have thought about potential nuclear war or pandemics and the like. But the cool thing about this is that we have the ability to use the tools of reason and science and make the world a better place, make tomorrow brighter than today. Humanity's only been around for around 200,000 years. The typical mammalian species on planet Earth survives for roughly 1 to 2 million years. And that's not factoring the potential that we have for space travel. If you laid out our current age compared to our potential age over a typical human lifespan, we are barely 10 years old. Despite that, we've made it this far thanks to reason and compassion. And I firmly believe that reason and compassion will get us the rest of the way. Thank you.
There you go. So you can take that one. And I will walk around. If anybody's got any questions, and remember, questions end in question marks.
You mentioned some projects putting money towards ending or reducing the risk of like nuclear war. What does that look like exactly?
Yeah, the United States in particular has a lot of organizations that are dedicated to reducing the risk of global nuclear war. And a lot of that involves ambassadorship to places like China and the places that we have the most animosity with, trying to smooth things over, make sure no one pushes that big red button, so to speak. There's also research into making warfare, making the rules of warfare more strict. Things like NATO and such that try to regulate that kind of thing. If you want to learn more than what I know about nuclear war and ambassadorship and geopolitics, the website Center for Effective Altruism and 80,000 Hours has a massive amount of research that you can do to look up that cause area and what various organizations are trying to do to mitigate that.
What projects are you guys engaged in or planning to be engaged in on the local level in your local community?
That's a great question. Thank you. So one of the things that we keep hoping to do is local impact evaluations. Being able to take a look at what the biggest problems that face Kansas City are, and then figure out which charities are most effective at making headway on those problems. I will say that it's probably not the most EA thing we could be doing, because like we kind of talked about, we tend to focus a lot more on developing nations. But I have discovered that there's a lot of money by corporations that's earmarked for Kansas City. That's money that's going to go to Kansas City no matter what anyone does. So if that money is earmarked for Kansas City anyways, we may as well try to help make that as effective as possible. To that end, though, we do need some more domain expertise involved. We're just a bunch of guys. We don't have any expertise on local charity entrepreneurship. So that is the first step, is finding some local expertise that we can consult to then impart the tools of EA.
Yeah.
So if you know anyone.
Yeah, I was about to say, if you know anybody who has access to data regarding that or know anybody who has experience in that area, we would actually really love to collaborate.
Yeah.
Hi, we got a question from the live stream from Phil Monroe, who asks, any thoughts about Charity Navigator as a source to evaluate a particular charity?
It's better than nothing, for sure. I would say Charity Navigator is more for figuring out if they're truly spending the money on the thing that they're claiming to spend it on, and if they're wasting money on things like CEO salaries. So it is useful for that. It won't be doing any meta-analysis on like how important is it that they be doing this thing in the first place. Like, it'll tell you if they're actually adhering to their mission. It won't tell you whether their mission or their project is actually doing good. It's just telling you how internally consistent they are for the most part. So I would turn to something like GiveWell for more analysis.
Yeah, and an additional note on that, something that GiveWell tends to do is they tend to give cost estimates, like it'll cost this amount of money to save a life using this particular charity. I don't think that that's something that Charity Navigator often offers, so there's a little bit more transparency with GiveWell, who's done tremendous amounts of research.
I have a question about another factor involved in the decision on what people might want to help, and that's like the emotional side of it, the personal engagement factor. And I realize that the analysis that you're providing for the scientifically, mathematically measuring the effectiveness of any given contribution is really worthwhile, very valid, and makes a lot of sense. So related to this emotional component, is there a factor of, say, if I'm donating to a particular cause that I am very emotionally engaged with, the likelihood of me bringing other people along and therefore increasing the number of people and the amount of donations to that cause?
Yeah, if I understand your question correctly, you're asking about, the technical term for this would be network effects, like the ability to bring other people along with you and based on various factors like emotional excitement. Is that a fair representation? Okay, great. Yeah, that's very hard to measure, is the main concern. I would be interested in people that can measure that. I think that is a really important thing to figure out. As someone who is vegan, even though my marginal impact of being vegan is basically non-existent on the individual level, I care about being vegan because I think it shows other people that you can live a vegan lifestyle. So I am very sympathetic to this concept of network effects. I don't have a good answer to that, though, because it's hard to measure. Yeah.
Do we have any more questions? Oh, we got one.
Good questions, guys. Love them.
So kind of piggybacking off of what she was asking, do you find that in practice, many people will then kind of split their giving to maybe, half of it very numbers oriented, and then maybe half things like, I like puppies and kitties and I want to help the puppies and kitties. They're at the shelter down the street from me, or, things like that. So, I mean, there's a balance, like one doesn't have to choose absolutely, right? Either way.
Yeah, I mean, like I tried to hammer on pretty hard at the beginning, is EA is just one tool of many. The effectiveness of things is a scale, and there are many important aspects to living a good life. I think the important concern to keep in mind is that we are naturally very emotional, and so we are biased towards favoring things that give us emotional reactions. So we should be careful to try to correct for that as much as possible. And that way we at least are intentional about how we're splitting up our money. Because it can be very tempting to think, oh, I'm splitting it 50-50, but in actuality it's like 90-10, because emotions bias us in a lot of ways.
Awesome. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you, everyone.
That's the way I do it with my beers. All right, we got a few more slides. All right, there we go. Okay. As Danny comes back, I want to remind everybody that we are a 501c3 nonprofit run solely on donations and volunteers. So if you like today's topic, today's music, please consider donating through kansascityoasis.org/donate, or the Venmo thing with the technology, do the phone thing. And then Danny, you want to come back up? Thank you very much. And as a reminder, on all the socials, Facebook, YouTube, Music, Spotify, Apple, all that kind of fun stuff, PayPal, and of course the jar and buy the CDs and all that stuff. Fantastic.
All right. So this song is like, I want you to imagine that you're walking in a forest and you come across this green space in the middle. And it's like a temple in nature, all covered with vines and leaves. There's no need to fear. You have sovereignty. Cast away the chains. Take your liberty. Listen to your heart. Gentle guide inside. Dreams reveal the way. Destiny in flight. There's a force inside of you, and also in others. A dazzling light surrounds us all, sisters and brothers. And when I look at you, I see the fingers of Creator. Trillions of tentacles transmitting love out of our faces. And we remember when our value wasn't counted, when gifts were all we had to give, no one owed a balance. The time is here again. All we gotta do is take it. Imaginary scarcity becomes a world of plenty. Imaginary scarcity becomes a world of plenty. Thank you very much.
All right, once we're done with our program, there'd be a number of us going out having lunch. If you're not part of the book club, you know, those people stay. For lunch, we're going to be going over to Tanner's. It's 3900 Rainbow Boulevard, and so you're welcome to join us as soon as that we are done with the program. But before that, if you take a second, look straight down on the floor. If you see anything other than your feet, please pick it up, take it with you on the way out. Next week's program is also going to be very exciting. We are going to be learning about Amnesty International, as well as music from Nick I'm not going to say it right. Schnellenbaum. Schneblin. There we go. We got the smart guy in there. All right, so anyway, that concludes our program today. So thank you very much for everything you do. No, it does not conclude our program today. We have another.
Hey guys, it's Julie. I just wanted to tell you real quick, this was Al's first time as MC. Can we give Al a round of applause? Should we have Al come back as an MC maybe later? Yes? Okay, I just had to pop in. Okay, that's it. It's yours again. That's all.
All right, now you can get the hell out of here or stay and read the book club or whatever you're going to do. Have a great day. Thank you, everybody.